Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Tax Watch, brought to you by the Concerned Taxpayers of Duval County in partnership with Comcast. Thank you very much everybody for tuning in and Comcast. I'm Victor Wilhelm, I'm the president of Concerned Taxpayers this year, and I'll also be your host this evening. We have a very special episode today. We are bringing you some of the candidates that we have endorsed. If you'd like to find out more about our candidates, please go to the website at www.jackstaxpayers.org, and please feel free to call our hotline anytime you'd like at 904-351-8126. With us today is John Winkler, the chair of our candidate committee and immediate past president, as well as Robin Lum and Jim Robinson, and Dick Kravitz as well. So turning it over to John Winkler, who will go over the second edition of our Voters Guide and take us into speaking with the candidates. John?
All right, well, super, Victor. The second Voters Guide should be virtually everywhere on May 12th. It's also going to be available right now on our website. That would be www.jackstaxpayers.org. And once again, as Victor points out, we have endorsees. We have endorsed Mike Hogan for mayor, Dick Kravitz, who will be with us here shortly as for tax collector, Jim Robinson in at-large Group 4, who's sitting over here, along with Robin Lum for at-large Group 5 for city council, who is immediately to my right. We've also endorsed Clay Yarborough in city council District 1. And we have anti-endorsed David Taylor in at-large Group 1, once again largely on the basis of his continuing unraveling of ethical and potential legal problems. We have, as part of our Voters Guide, and it should be available on the back of that on our website, as well as a survey of how the candidates came out in answering the questions that we asked involving 7 specific ordinances that have come up in City Council over the last couple of years. Again, I'd like to point out that both Mr. Robinson and Mr. Lum have very high scores on this, and with no further ado, Victor, let's interview these two remarkable young men.
Well, first we'll go to Mr. Robinson, candidate for Group 4. If you have not watched our video, we do have that video interview, so you can watch the video interview if you would like to know more. But Mr. Robinson, would you tell us what distinguishes you from your opponent in particular? The viewers can go and see what the score is, that in this race you scored a 71% for our fiscal responsibility rating compared to your opponent of 67%. What distinguishes you in this race? Why should you be the council member compared to your opponent?
Thank you, Victor. I think it's largely related to the type of experience. I'm a civil engineer by training, and
that's the best kind.
Yes, my wife says I'm civil most days. But that career has afforded me really a lifetime of problem solving. And I think that's a very key characteristic for sitting on council with the many varied problems that exist. Also, coupled with that, I've been a small business owner for 20 years of my 30 years here in Jacksonville. I've made payroll, I've hired and fired people, I've made budgets, I've grown a company. Those are all skills that would enable me to dive into this crazy 600-page budget and really understand the relationship of issues and find ways to cut back on expenses. And the third thing is I have time to serve. I sold my company and finished that transition last year, and I think time available is an important thing this cycle because of the gravity of problems and issues that we face.
So, and now I want to remind our viewers that at-large Group 4, every person in Duval County will be able to vote in this race. So if people wanted to find out more about your campaign in particular, or your platform, do you have a website or a phone number you'd like to give out for the viewers?
We have a good website at votejimrobinson.com. And there's an issues tab that shows my position on lots of city issues and other information there about my background.
Okay, very good. Well, that's going to take us into the next race, at-large Group 5, where we have Robin Lum, who received our endorsement and 100% score on the fiscal responsibility rating, as well as interviewing very well, which we have his interview on the website. So please go to the website and view it. Robin Lum, again, for you, what distinguishes you in particular in this race that makes you better than your opponent, outside of, you know, our glamorous endorsement of you?
I have a very long and extensive history of involvement in the community. I've served in a number of charitable and civic organizations. I'm a past president of the Junior Chamber of Commerce, been on the board of governors of the Chamber of Commerce. I've served on the boards of Riverside Avondale Preservation, Clara White Mission, the Civic Roundtable, the Suicide Prevention Center. I'm also a small business owner and started a couple of small businesses. I'm a proven job creator. I know what it is to meet payroll. That's a life-changing experience, by the way, if you haven't done that on a regular basis. And you're talking about $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 a week, and that's a challenge. And in 2009, I was the Republican leader who led the charge against the Pelosi-Reed healthcare legislation here in Duval County. And I did that because I had a fairly in-depth understanding of the issue in detail. It's a area of public policy I discovered I had followed for many years. And that's not analogous to what we're going to be facing on City Council, but I have demonstrated an ability to deal with complex public policy issues. And I think that I'm prepared. This is a good time in my life to be doing this. And I wanted to step forward and take on the challenge because I thought I could do an effective job for the citizens of Duval County.
We think you do as well, and for viewers that want to find out more in particular about your platform and any other information that we haven't provided or is not in our interview, do you have a website or a phone number that you'd like to give out to the viewers?
I was actually originally going to use www.votejimrobinson.com, but he got to it first, and then I realized, well, wait a minute, no, it's www.votelum, and Lum is spelled Lumb.com.
Okay, well, we encourage the viewers to go to our website, www.jackstaxpayers.org. That's a lot of wwws to throw at you. Watch the interviews, read the voter's guide, and look at the comparison on the back where we've scored all the candidates. And your voter's guide number 2 will be coming out to you very soon, hopefully, with your help. I guess what maybe we should move to, John, is the next race. Or you want to talk more about Group 4, Group 5? And again, for our viewers, Group 5, where Mr. Lum is featured as our endorsee, everybody in Duval County can vote in at-large Group 5 as well as at-large Group 4. So these are anybody in Duval County. Everybody in Duval County will have the opportunity to vote in this race. Do you have anything you want to add for Group 4, Group 5?
Well, I would add this about, in particular about Mr. Robinson's race, when we interviewed his opponent, and we interviewed his opponent extensively and tried to give Mr. Anderson every opportunity to give us specifics as to how he would address the cuts that need to be made in the city budget, and he simply was unable to ever give us any specifics, no matter how hard we tried to get him to do so. That is the kind of indecisiveness that we do not need on the City Council, and that's one of the reasons why we endorsed Jim Robinson, obviously.
And I would say that interview was actually probably one of our longest interviews, which your viewers are more than welcome to go watch that interview. And I want to mention, at-large Group 5, Mr. Lum's opponent, we did give him an opportunity to interview, extended several opportunities. We were never able to get him to come in and interview us, and it actually took him a very long time to return the questionnaire in, which initially went out in December, and he did turn it in several days after the deadline. And just to be fair and give an opportunity for fair consideration, we did provide that information because we had not gone to printing yet with the voter's guide. So that information was provided as a courtesy, although we could have excluded it. But again, we tried our best to get Mr. Lum's opponent in there for an interview, and he would not avail himself to an interview. So, and we were disappointed by that because we wanted to give all candidates an opportunity to interview. And maybe we should move on to the our next guest, Dick Kravitz, or more on Group 4, Group 5?
That's a good question. I'm not sure where we are in relationship to our upcoming break here.
Jim and I would be happy to continue talking about ourselves.
All right. Well, why don't you talk about yourself for a minute, Mr. Lum? Start talking.
That's an open-ended question. It's going to be very, for those folks that are tuning in, I'm assuming they have an affinity for the message of the concerned taxpayers of Duval County. I also serve in the capacity of Vice Chairman of the Republican Party of Duval County, and I can tell you that this is going to be a close election. There are voter turnout models that show that Alvin Brown can perform very well under the right circumstances. If you are concerned about the physical health and well-being of the city of Jacksonville, then I urge those voters to get to the polls. Make sure we had an extraordinary number of voters who received absentee ballots, who didn't return them, and didn't vote early or on election day. We can't have that happening again. Folks have got to vote, and they've got to take friends and family to the poll.
And it looks like we might be 3 minutes to the midway. 3 minutes? Okay, all right. Maybe it's probably 2 minutes now. I want to emphasize that this is a pivotal time in Duval County where every vote's going to count. And our Dorsey, Mike Hogan, and the rest of our slate, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Lum, Yarborough, and Kravitz, it is a pivotal time in Duval County, and we are at the precipice, we believe, of turning things around in Duval County. This is an opportunity for voters to change the direction of where we are going to go with being fiscally responsible, and whether we want to follow the road of other cities, specifically Detroit, where we've taxed everybody out, we've driven away all the producers, and have ruined the county, and become a burnt-out urban core. So that is not what anybody wants to see in Duval County, in our fair city. Mr. Robinson, do you have anything you want to add about the race? What do you view this? How do you view this race? Is this a pivotal moment in our time in Duval County?
Well, it certainly is. There have been many people that have likened this cycle to that occurred back at consolidation, where business people were put in for a season or stepped up for a season to try to help out and get the city in the right direction. You know, one of the things that I feel strongly about related to the budget is that the process is broken. One of the things that I want to see is there be a very worthwhile and wholesome year-long discussion about budget priorities. I've sat through some committee meetings at the city here lately, and things are so buried in the minutia, there's no vision of what the budget is trying to accomplish. And I think that part of the process drastically needs improving. And if we do that, and if we have that common theme and common set of priorities, I think this city can get on the move again.
Okay, very good. Now that we're at our halfway mark, now would probably be a good time to do our public service announcement and then transition to our next guest, Dick Kravitz. With 15 minutes remaining, I think that would be a perfect, good thing to do.
I think that would be an excellent thing to do, Victor.
So let's focus in on Mr. Winkler. We'll do our public service announcement and transition our guests. And I want to thank Mr. Lum and Mr. Robinson for coming to our show. Please go to their website. Please go to our website and vote for these fine candidates who need your vote on May 17th.
In a moment, we'll be back with Mr. Kravitz.
I can solve difficult problems for a Fortune 500 company.
I can run a successful business.
I can put my military experience to work for your company.
I can manage your home improvements.
I can publicize a message.
I can teach your children.
But I can't put my skills to work for your organization
if I'm not given the opportunity.
Nearly 50 million Americans have disabilities. Capitalize on their talents with employment practices that benefit everyone. Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
All right, welcome back to Tax Watch. We hope you enjoyed that PSA. In case you're tuning in for the first time, I'm Victor Wilhelm. You're the president of Concerned Taxpayers of Duval County. And before we go to our next guest, John Winkler is going to do our PSA for our voter's guide to just go over it really briefly, show you what it is so you can download it, print it out, and give it to all your friends and family, your Rotarians, your church group, your Bible study, your homeowner association, and just hand them out randomly. And we'd be very grateful if you did that. So, John, go ahead. Show them what we got.
All right. We should have shots of these. There we go. Page 1 of our voter's guide has a brief explanation of who we're endorsing and who else was running, who we are, concerned taxpayers of Duval County. A message from our president explains that we are nonpartisan, and that we're very serious about the fact that we're nonpartisan. We don't even list anyone's political party or lack thereof anywhere in our voter's guide, and we didn't do that with the one before March 22nd either. If you go to the second page, well, actually, we seem to have the third page up. The third page actually has Mr. Kravitz's endorsement there. The yellow box below is a warning about his opponent. In the middle, we have our explanation as to why we don't think David Taylor is appropriate. Back to page 2, we have our mayoral endorsement for Mike Hogan. We explain not only why we believe he is the correct choice for mayor, but over in the next column, we explain why we don't think that Alvin Brown is the right choice for mayor. Going into some detail about the fact, which was actually featured in the folio this week, the fact that it appears that Mr. Brown may in fact be running for Congress more than he is running for mayor. We also have our endorsements there of the last two gentlemen who were on here, Robin Lum and Jim Robinson. We point out that in District 14, although there is a distinct choice, neither one of those candidates is somebody we could endorse. If we go back to page 3, you'll see that we also have our endorsement of Clay Yarborough, an explanation as to why we're not endorsing in City Council District 6. If we go to the last page, there's a summary. You'll see the election survey results for the remaining offices. Shows you who we're endorsing, who we're not endorsing, who we've anti-endorsed, why we, in a general way, whether or not they passed our initial test of the 7 votes that we think were important. And basically, with this voter's guide, if folks will take the time to read it, I think that they'll be much better informed. We also have a map of the districts there. Much better informed and able to make a meaningful choice either by absentee ballot, early voting, or on May 17th, an actual election day. This document in a PDF format is available at jackstaxpayers.org, and we hope to have many thousands of a newsprint version circulated within the county in the next few weeks.
Now on to the next race, tax collector. We have Mr. Kravitz, who's a candidate for tax collector, and tax collector isn't typically a race that voters are concerned about, but I believe that this race is really important, not so much for the position, but who is running. Here we have Mr. Kravitz, who's, in my opinion, could be considered a champion of the taxpayer, compared to his opponent, Michael Corrigan, who's received one of the most abysmal ratings from his past voting record, the antithesis of a champion for the taxpayers. So in this race, it's almost about who is running and what we want, who we want to advance and represent us in these constitutional offices, and who deserves these constitutional offices. With Mr. Corrigan, because of his voting record, we unconditionally reject his candidacy, and not absolutely reject him. And Mr. Kravitz, his voting record from prior service in the legislature is just outstanding. So Mr. Kravitz, in this race, I think we've done a very good job of spelling out the differences. But in your opinion, what is this race about? Why should we be voting for you compared to Mr. Corrigan? We think it's very obvious, but you tell us.
Well, I think there's 2 basic reasons. You touched on one. I'll get into that in a second. I think the first thing is who's best for the job. And as I told some people in the past when I was in a forum, you know, if this was a job that was offered, let's say, in a newspaper, and you got something that said, wanted tax collector, and here are your qualifications. Well, let me lay that out, what they are, because that's very important to the public beyond everything else. First of all, I have the education background. I've got a bachelor's degree. I've done postgraduate work at University of Pennsylvania Wharton School of Business. I've got a master's degree. And then 15 years of my private sector business experience has been in the retail operation, the retail business, running professional sports franchises, where you're dealing with thousands of customers every day, just like the tax collector's office. So your experience needs to be in management, making sure the people who work for you understand the public. When they come in, you want to make sure they're satisfied, they're treated with respect and dignity, they get their job done, you're efficient, and they don't have to come back. That's what it's all about. If I didn't do that job when I was running professional teams, I wouldn't have lasted a year. The second thing that you have to do is make sure that you run an efficient operation. And I've got awards, national awards for my management expertise. The Sporting News made me the General Manager of the Year in the entire country. You don't get that based on poor performance. You get that because you excelled over everybody else in this country using sound management principles and customer service principles to treat your customers just like, you know, family in a sense. You come in, you want to be taken care of, you want to be respected. And that's also a very important point, because when you're running that tax collector's office, I say this many, many times, it's no different than running any other retail operation. And that's my expertise, running retail operations. Unlike my opponent, who's a good businessman, but he's in the wholesale, in the distribution, in the manufacturing. You don't deal with the public in that type of business like you deal with it in the retail business, and so that's my expertise. The second thing has to do with the point you were making about background and who the person is and their voting record. Someone may say, well, why is that? Well, you expect that if a person is going to be a fiscally conservative person, all of his voting record, you know, in public service, that's going to carry over, and that's the case with me. On the opposite side, if you fast forward to being in the tax collector's office, if the opponent would get in, probably when there's an issue with having to readjust the office, having to cut back on the budget to meet the problems that the city has faced or the state is facing, you want someone who immediately says, here's what we're going to do. We're going to reprioritize our needs. We're going to fit the budget in where it belongs by not increasing our revenues, but by decreasing our costs. That's my background. That's the direct opposite of my opponents. When the city found a need to fill holes in the budget, instead of reducing their expenses, they increased taxes and fees. So when the state, and you know, the tax collector's office gets a commission from the state to do their services in the office, and then they got to go before the city council to approve their budget. So if I faced a shortfall in my budget, the first thing I would do is look to reduce costs. I wouldn't go to the state and say, I need more money, or wouldn't go to the city council and say, I need more money. I would go back in and say, look, we will make do with what's within the budget, and I will reprioritize my needs to make that budget perfect. And that's my background. That's automatic. I don't go and look for increases in revenue first. I look for decreases in costs. And let me cite one example. And we can make the comparison between my opponent on the city council and myself in the legislature. When Marco Rubio appointed me the chairman of the Criminal Justice Appropriations Committee, the budget in that committee, just that committee, was almost $5 billion. That's a B. The city budget, I think, is approaching $2 billion. But just in my one area, I had that budget. And the Speaker Rubio, who is now a U.S. Senator, said, I don't want to see any increases in revenue or fees to fill that hole. I want you to reprioritize that budget. This is your figure, and I want to come in on that figure. And that's exactly what I did. I made sure that budget came in on time. That budget was just the way it was laid out, without any increase in taxes or fees. It can be done if that's your mentality, if that's the kind of true conservative person you are, regardless of party. Doesn't matter what party you are. It's the fact that you're a fiscal conservative and you're not going to charge taxes to people.
Well, Mr. Kravitz, really briefly, because we're running out of time, could you tell us a little bit, you're obviously very well qualified, and your legislative track record is just stellar compared to your opponent. And I think your opponent's record speaks for itself. Could you tell us a little more about your community involvement, about your advocacy for victims of crime, some other things, just very, very briefly?
Yes, I've been a victims' rights advocate for 25 years. I've gotten awards for that. I'm on the Justice Coalition. I've got the Mayor's Victims Advisory Council Award, Christian Family and Faith Award, Pace Center for Girls. I saved their budget, budgetary. I save them in our budget without increasing taxes and fees. Same with Guardian Ad Litem. Police Athletic League, I was on the board of directors. So I've advocated for victims, for young kids. I'm the sponsor of the Jessica Lunsford Act, that first-time offense in the entire country, minimum 25 years to life for molesters of children under 11 years old. And the Florida prosecuting attorneys gave me the award for my closing argument bill that gave the prosecution the closing argument for the jury in all criminal cases. And I'm very proud of that. That shows you the kind of person I am and involved in the community all of my life. And I think you really need to look at that when you select anyone for public office.
And I wanted to note that apparently some of the neighboring counties' tax collectors have also endorsed you.
Absolutely. And Dennis Hollingsworth, especially from St. Johns County, who's had a lot of experience. If we have time, could I just read a little segment of what he said? Just take a second.
We're almost out of time. Quickly.
He says, I believe your experience as a city councilman and legislator gives you a unique perspective of the role of tax collector, and my experience as a businessman will be put to great use in this public office. I wholeheartedly endorse your candidacy and look forward to working with you when you're elected to the office of Duval County tax collector. Dennis Hollingsworth. That's a really good endorsement. He's well respected in that community. Right.
And I want to also add that Ryan Taylor, one of your opponents, has also endorsed you strongly in this race, and I believe is working with you on your campaign.
Absolutely. How could I forget that? Because Ryan got 30,000 votes, and I'm glad you brought that up. And Ryan has wholeheartedly, enthusiastically supported me and is working with me every day to get the word out that I have his endorsement. And so that's very, very important for those people that did vote for Ryan.
And I know in that race, Ryan Taylor received one of the very few honorable mentions that we gave. We only gave 4 honorable mentions, and Ryan and Taylor gave him one, and the committee liked him as well. And that his endorsement of Mr. Kravitz here speaks very highly of Mr. Kravitz, in our opinion. You know, we're just about out of time. We want to thank the viewers for watching the show and tuning in. Encourage you to go to the website, www.jackstaxpayers.org, read the Voters Guide. Also, feel free to call our hotline, 904-351-8126. We want to thank Mr. Kravitz for coming on. Very briefly, Mr. Kravitz, do you have a website or a phone number you'd like to give out to the viewers?
Yes, website is kravitzfortaxcollector.com.
Okay, and we're going to try to see what we can do about getting all these websites onto our website and perhaps include them in the Voters Guide. We're going to try to get that all up there for you to find very easily. Again, we thank you for tuning in and watching the show. Please go to the website, and remember that jackstaxpayers.org, we, the concerned taxpayers of Duval County, we do our best to represent you, the taxpayer. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit group, and our sole interest is to represent the taxpayers, and we do a very good job of being objective and fair to everybody. So thank you for watching our show, and please tune in next time for Tax Watch.